So here's an interesting discussion. Constitutional law expert Professor Pierre advocates for the appointment of a black radical rector at Stellenbosch University, and this is to tackle the formidable challenge of institution-wide transformation. DeVos says such a figure is necessary to effectively drive change within the university. DeVos made no secret of his skepticism about his alma mater's commitment to changing the residence culture at Wilgenhof. Professor DeVos joins us now to unpack this further. Prof, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm wondering just the sort of reactions that you've gotten to this article that you published, and, well, not the article that you published, but certainly the views that you've shared with News 24 in this piece. I can only imagine what those views can be, and you can share with us, if you will, what you've heard, and also what sparked the conversation for you.
Okay, so I was actually invited to Stellenbosch by Professor to talk about the change at the university, the culture and so on. I spoke a lot about the reasons why it's so difficult and why people are so resistant. And I spoke about shame, that people have shame because they have to then admit that what happened before, the identity, that it is a bit trouble. So that was the context. I haven't really looked at the comments, except, of course, that the one or two on Twitter that I saw did exactly that. It's people who push away and say, how can you say that what happened in the past is bad? It is as if you attack a person's individual identity. And it's for that reason that I said, one of the things that might help to change the university is to appoint a rector that is not coming from within the broader Afrikaans community. Somebody that is not beholden to Afrikaans interest, cannot understand what is written in the Afrikaans newspapers. Somebody that from the outside, for example, a black rector, but of course it needs to be somebody that really is passionate about change, to drive it from the top, not somebody who is going to be within the elite, so to speak, and you know what I mean, yeah.
Yeah, you know what stood out for me, Prof, is that, I mean, one of the things that you say is that the university has appointed some people of color to leadership positions. And you're speaking about being invited by Professor Ratele, for instance, who's a great academic and a great voice, a great black academic voice as well. But one of the things that stood out for me is the fact that Stellenbosch University does not, exist in a vacuum. It exists in a community that lives and thinks and views themselves in a certain way. And one wonders then how a black rector would be able to push against what is not just institutional knowledge, but certainly cultural knowledge in the terms of how the community views itself as well, which is a much bigger task.
Yes, so we were laughing yesterday or the day before at the meeting about how difficult it is and how that it will, no matter who does it, no matter how serious you are, it will take time. The thing is, of course, yes, it is situated in a certain community, but the university is also situated in South Africa. It's a national asset. It shouldn't be a place where people, because they are not white Afrikaans, they do not come from a specific culture and tradition, where they feel they're not welcome or they feel excluded or they cannot flourish there because of the culture. It belongs to all of us, and the university to change. It is, I agree with you, a very difficult task. I quoted the former Vice-Chancellor at Stellenbosch that says it's a Sisyphean task, basically close to impossible, but it needs to be done. Yeah,
the project needs to start. I'm keen to talk a little bit about Wilgenhof, and you actually spent the first 2 years of your studies at Wilgenhof that essentially really got the country talking in January when we started to see what the men's res looked like and what looked like also images of a torture room that we believe was used for initiation in that res. Talk to us about what you feel is going on there, what needs to be done about Wilgenhof.
Yes, so Wilgenhof is just one of the residences, maybe a more extreme example, but there's a kind of culture, traditions within, especially still the men's residences, that stems from the kind of initiation practices that comes back from 1909. And the first time it was abolished was in 1922, and it was abolished about 10 times after that.
Goodness.
So the thing with Wilgenhof is, and other places, is that there's this, it has a very strong identity. The former residents of Wilgenhof are very loyal to it. They are very resistant to any kind of change. Many of these practices are, of course, quite horrific. It's quite abusive. You know, you strip naked and painted with black paint and made you drink things and humiliated and so on. That's not something that has any place at the university. But once again, it hasn't changed, despite the fact that until the end of last year, the staff member who had to oversee this has always been somebody who used to be a resident at Wilgenhof, knew exactly what was happening there, what happened in that room, did nothing about it. So there is a kind of complicity from people within the university, from the management side, kind of turning the blind eye, because I think one of the reasons is that the alumni who were there, whose children might go there, are quite powerful, and it is very difficult politically to take this on head on. And that's also now they've appointed a commission of inquiry, drawn out to a fact-finding thing. I don't understand why that was necessary, because we know what happens there. We know what used to happen.
Yeah, I look at this and I'm thinking of some of the examples of these initiation practices, and I'm reading from the piece. For instance, one of the students died at Hayes Visser, was killed during a voluntary initiation ceremony. I'm reading here for the piece. Another student was permanently paralyzed. This was, of course, all the way back in 1972. Again, showing just how old these practices really are. Paralyzed in a mud initiation ritual. And the fear is that some of these rituals are still very much continuing at the university. Do you feel that there's very little oversight then in terms of just how much transformation really does take place within our institutions? I mean, we do have authorities like, for instance, the Department of Higher Learning that could be stepping in here. Is that something that we should be looking at?
I'm a little bit hesitant to have the department step in, because issues of academic freedom and so on. And at the same time, at Stellenbosch, for example, there has been actually oversight. There's supposed to be monitors in each resident during the initiation period to make sure nothing bad happens. That hasn't seemed to stop some of the practices, at least. Others, I know, have been stopped, because it's a tight-knit, closed community. They stand together. It's a kind of trauma bonding that happens there, so people don't speak out. Maybe people feel ashamed having taken part or being humiliated themselves. So there's a kind of conspiracy of silence that also permeate these institutions and make it more difficult. And
all too often, how you sort of dress these issues is by using the word tradition. And then it sounds like something very, very honorable. But, Prof, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. And thank you so much for bringing this issue to us. Certainly an ongoing discussion, I think, one that needs to be looked at not over the next few weeks, but certainly over years. As Prof said, it's not going to happen overnight. The transformation of Stellenbosch University. That was constitutional law expert, Professor Pierre speaking to us there.